So, what does it actually mean to speak a language? I trust every single person has their own opinion of what it constitutes to speak another language, where the limit is, or what the minimum requirements are. Some people might say it's about telling a joke. Some people say you have to be able to hold an argument and win. Some people say it's enough to read a book. Some people say it's enough just to be there and make yourself somehow understandable. I think this is very subjective, and I think within the scope of a video like this, I could only share my own views. I think the number one factor here is being able to actually understand the text and videos and speeches you hear about. Basically, you have to be able to comprehend what's going on. This is a big challenge because it requires great number of vocabulary, and you can't just go without it. Sooner or later, if you just rely on basic vocabulary within the language, you'll just reach the ceiling beyond which you can't go in terms of social acceptance, as far as I'm concerned. Basically, people don't respect you if you don't make an effort in order to improve yourself and be able to be more flexible in language. Another thing would be being able to speak, being able to express your ideas as they are. Speaking and reading are two very different things, because if you want to speak, you have to create things and you have to recall things. You have to basically create things out of nothing, which is more memory intensive rather than just recognizing words you've seen before. Not to say that that's easy. If you speak, you probably use less words than you would if you were only reading text, because recognizing doesn't require so much work as creating. So usually you'd have your own ideolect, and you can stay within the scope of this. Then the next thing about languages, I would say, is to be able to hold a speech, to be able to read out loud text and be able to stand by its correctness and be sure that there are as little mistakes as you could make. Again, this is also very different from speaking in terms of expressing yourself and reading a text, because if you want to hold a speech, there are different things you have to think about, things you have to worry about, certain things like keeping it interesting, your voice, the tone of it, the length of the sentences you use, the tempo, many things. So it's basically additional information. Why this matters is because if you talk in any social environment, sooner or later you will have to speak to more than one person. And one-on-one interaction is quite different to a group interaction, as group interaction requires you to be somewhat more interesting than anybody else is able to provide within the social context. So if you say something which requires things which are difficult for you to remember, then you will be automatically less interesting than somebody who can recall their own story immediately. Obviously this depends on the environment, the sort of environment you're in, and the people. But in my experience, it's generally so. The more interesting you are, the better your chances are. The more boring you are, the worse your chances are. And lastly, I would like to stress that being able to express abstract ideas and make the other person understand them while putting them at ease is completely different from any of the before disciplines. You want to express an abstract idea. For this, you need to know a lot of vocabulary. And the problem is, this being abstract, you can't really reference this to anything. If you have a piece of computer software which you have to explain to somebody else, how it works, what it does, what its crux is, you need to know exactly which words to use. You can't just say thing, you can't just say the matter, you can't just say the scope of these certain things. You have to say specific things which depict the thing at hand. I would like to say that this might be specific to my field, but I've learned to know that This is very important to be able to do. If you have an abstract idea and you want to convey it, there are only a few correct ways how to go about it. There are not trillions of different ways how to express something as trivial as "I've gone shopping today." You can say it in many different ways. You say, "I went out, then I came back, I went to buy milk, I closed the door, entered the store, left the store." These things you can create in any sort of multitude of ways, but with abstract things, it's so difficult to even imagine that for the other person to make sure that they understand the concept exactly as you understand it, you have to rely on specific vocabulary and use it correctly. If you have an abstract idea which you wish to convey, you can't mix these because it's going to become unclear. And the more unclear it gets, the less is the chance of the other person actually understanding it. So I would say the ultimate discipline, for me at least, according to my opinion, in learning another language is to be able to express an abstract idea with the correct terminology which the other person understands before their attention wears off. So that's all I have for today. Thanks for listening, and bye.